The kitchen smelled faintly of burnt sugar and regret when I found the letter. It was tucked inside a drawer I rarely opened, beneath a tangle of old grocery lists and a warped wooden spoon I'd meant to throw out years ago. The envelope was crisp, its edges unyellowed, as if it had been waiting for me to stumble upon it. The letter had read Harrington Va Sons, attorneys at law, and the words estate of Margaret Holloway stared back at me in bold, unapologetic print. My grandmother's name. My heart stuttered as I scanned the page. A dinner in VY Tatayon to discuss her will, scheduled for tomorrow night at a swanky downtown restaurant. Addressed to my husband, James, and my oldest friend, Tara. Not me. Never me. I stood there, the linoleum cold beneath my bare feet, clutching the letter in one hand and my grandmother's obituary in the other. She died 3 weeks ago, and the grief still clung to me like damp clothes after a rainstorm. James and Tara had been tiptoeing around me ever since, their voices soft, their smiles tight, as if I were a fragile thing that might shatter at the slightest touch. I thought it was kindness. Now, staring at that letter, I saw it for what it was: exclusion dressed up as concern. The front door creaked open, and James's voice cut through the silence. "Lila, you home?" He stepped into the kitchen, Tara trailing behind him, her auburn hair catching the late afternoon light. They froze when they saw me, the letter trembling in my grip. "What's this?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended, holding up the NVY Taton like Denke in a trial. James sighed, running a hand through his sandy Hira gesture that used to make my stomach flip but now just irritated me. "You're overreacting, Lila. It's just a dinner." "Just a dinner?" I echoed, incredulous. "With my grandmother's lawyer? About her estate? And I'm not in VY Ted." Tara stepped forward, her lawyer voice smooth and practiced. "Lila, listen. It's a preliminary meeting. Legal stuff, boring technical details. We didn't want to burden you with it, not when you've been so fragile lately." Fragile. The word landed like a slap. "She raised me, Tara. She was my family. And you two are meeting behind my back to decide what happens to her legacy." James exchanged a glance with Tara. That infuriating look they perfected over the years. The one that said I was being irrational, emotional, too much. "We thought Tara's legal expertise would help us get a handle on things before dragging you into it," he said. "You've been a mess since Margaret passed." A mess. I thought of the hours I'd spent in this very kitchen, trying to recreate Gran's blackberry cobbler, her signature dish, the one she'd taught me to make when I was 8, her flour-dusted hands guiding mine. "The trick," she'd whispered, "is to keep the butter cold and your heart steady. Especially when family's involved." That cobbler was her legacy. Not just a recipe but a tether to the woman who'd been my anchor after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. And now James and Tara were treating me like an afterthought. "Why is Tara in VY Ted and not me?" I pressed, my voice cracking. "She's not family." James shifted uncomfortably. "She's got experience with estate law, Lila. We figured she could." "Cut the bullshit," I snapped, surprising even myself. "This isn't about her expertise. This is about you two deciding what's mine without me." Tara's eyes narrowed, but her tone stayed calm. "We're protecting you, Lila. The probate attorney just wants to go over the assets. You're too close to this to think clearly." "Protecting me?" I laughed, bitter and hollow. "By sneaking around? By leaving me out of decisions about my own grandmother?" James checked his watch, impatience flickering across his face. "Look, it's not a conspiracy. It's a dinner with a lawyer. You're turning this into some big drama when it's just logistics." Gran's voice echoed in my head. "Watch how people act when they think you're not looking, Lilabug. That's when you see their souls." I stared at James, then Tara, their dismissive tones and shared glances painting a picture I'd been too blind or too trusting to see before. This wasn't about logistics. This was about control. I turned to the fridge where Gran's last postcard hung, pinned by a faded magnet. "To my Lilabug," it read in her looping script, "keep the cabin alive for me. It's yours to hold, not to sell." The cabin, her lakeside retreat in the Adirondacks, where we'd spent every summer of my childhood. The place where she'd taught me to fish, to stargaze, to listen to the wind through the pines. It wasn't just a property, it was a promise. "This isn't about legal details," I said quietly, my back to them. It's about the cabin, her recipes, her stories. You're already planning to sell it, aren't you? James's silence was answer enough. Tara cleared her throat. Lila, the cabin's a money pit. For hours away, taxes piling up, we'd never use it enough to justify keeping it. James and I just want to make sure everything's handled properly. Handled properly, I repeated, turning to face them. By you too. Without me. James threw up his hands. For God's sake, Lila, it's just a dinner. You're being ridiculous. Something inside me snapped, not broke, but ignited. The grief I'd been carrying, the betrayal now searing through me, fused into a white-hot resolve. I grabbed my phone from the counter, fingers shaking as I opened a travel app one hadn't touched in years. What are you doing? James demanded, stepping closer. Booking a flight, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. To New Orleans. New Orleans. Tara's brows shot up. Are you serious? We have lives here, responsibilities. Apparently my responsibility is to sit quietly while you two carve up my inheritance. I shot back. The app pinged. A one-way ticket departing in 3 hours. Impulsive, reckless, perfect. I hit confirm. James followed me as I stormed to the bedroom, yanking my duffel bag from the closet. You can't just run off to New Orleans because you're pissed about a dinner. Watch me, I said, stuffing clothes into the bag, jeans, a sweater, nothing fancy. This wasn't about jazz clubs or beignets. It was about space, about breathing without their suffocating presence. I grabbed Gran's recipe notebook from my nightstand, its leather cover worn soft from years of use, and tucked it into the bag's side pocket. Her handwriting, her wisdom, it was coming with me. This is why we didn't include you, James hissed, his voice low and cutting. You're irrational. I paused, Gran's words ringing again. When someone shows you who they are, believe them, Lilabug. I met his gaze, unflinching. No, James. This is why you should have included me. Because now I see exactly who you both are. The Uber driver didn't comment on my tear-streaked face as he loaded my bag into the trunk. The ride to Albany International Airport was silent, the suburban streets blurring into highway lights. James called twice before I reached security. I let both go to voicemail. Tara texted. I know you're upset, but this is extreme. Call us. I turned my phone to airplane mode and boarded the plane. The woman next to me on the flight had gray curls and a warm smile that reminded me of Gran. Rough day? She asked, nodding at the sigh I hadn't realized I'd let out. You could say that, I replied, managing a weak laugh. Her name was Evelyn, a retired nurse heading to New Orleans for a jazz festival. Something about her, maybe the kindness in her eyes, maybe the anonymity of a stranger, unlocked the story I'd been holding in. I told her everything. Gran's death, the secret dinner, James and Tara's betrayal. By the time we were over the Appalachians, I'd spilled it all. Evelyn listened, her expression shifting from sympathy to steel. I nursed families through worse than this, she said, handing me a tissue from her purse. Money and death bring out the vultures. Your grandmother sounds like she knew that. She did, I said, thinking of the cabin, the recipes, the way Gran had always seen through people. She used to say family isn't about what you leave behind, it's about who values it. Smart lady. Evelyn patted my hand. This trip might be the best thing you've done for yourself in a while. Distance clears the fog. As the plane descended into Louis Armstrong International, the city's lights glittered below like a promise. Evelyn pressed a business card into my hand. Her son was a lawyer, she said, in case I needed advice. I thanked her, stepping into the humid night air with a strange sense of relief. I checked into a small hotel in the Garden District, a creaky Victorian with peeling paint and a balcony overlooking oak-lined streets. The room was simple. A bed with a faded quilt, a desk, a ceiling fan whirring lazily. I kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto the mattress, the weight of the day finally catching up with me. My phone buzzed. James again. I'm sorry if we hurt you. Come home. We'll figure this out. No real apology, just placation. I silenced notifications and drifted into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, I woke to the sound of a streetcar rattling past. Sunlight streamed through the gauzy curtains, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of clarity. I showered, pulled on a clean shirt, and headed to a cafe down the street. Over chicory coffee and a plate of beignets, I called my brother, Nate, who lived 2 hours from the cabin in Syracuse. I should have done it sooner, but grief had a way of isolating me. Lila, thank God, he said when he picked up. James told me you were too wrecked to talk about Gran's will. I've been worried sick. James said that. My grip tightened on the mug. Nate, they're meeting with her lawyer tonight without me. I found the invitation. Tara's involved too. A pause then. That son of a bitch. Tara called me last week, asking about the cabin's upkeep costs. Said you and James were thinking of selling because it'd be too hard for you to go back there. Anger flared hot and sharp. They're lying. Gran wanted us to keep it, me and you, not them. There's more, Nate said, his voice dropping. I talked to Gran's neighbor Pete up at the lake. Tara's been by twice in the last month with some real estate guy showing the place. Told Pete it was at your request. The cafe spun around me. Tara, my friend since college, who'd cried with me at Gran's funeral, was plotting to sell the cabin out from under me. And James, me husband of 7 years, was letting her. I thought of Evelyn's words about vultures, Gran's warnings about true colors. They'd been scheming while I mourned, using my absence as an opportunity. I'm in New Orleans, I told Nate. I needed to get away. But I'm coming back tomorrow. We need to stop this. Good, he said. Gran left a letter with her lawyer-specific instructions. The cabin's ours, Lila. She made sure of it. I hung up, my mind racing. I unzipped my duffel to grab Gran's recipe notebook, needing its familiar weight to ground me. It wasn't there. I tore through the bag, panic rising, clothes, toiletries, but no notebook. Then I found it. A folded note in James's blocky handwriting, slipped into the pocket where the notebook should have been. Took this for safekeeping. Too precious to lose on your little trip. He'd stolen it. While I'd packed, frantic and betrayed, he'd rifled through my things and taken the one piece of Gran I'd wanted to keep close. I called him, my hands shaking with fury. Where's Gran's notebook? I demanded when he answered. It's safe here, he said, defensive. I didn't want you losing it in some hotel room. You had no right, I spat. That's mine, James, not ours, mine. As your husband, I'm protecting what's valuable, he shot back, his tone sliding into that condescending drawl I'd grown to hate. You're too emotional to see what matters right now. Keep it for now, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I'll deal with you when I get back. I hung up before he could respond, then called Harrington Vassons, leaving a voicemail for a private meeting. Next I texted Nate. We're meeting the lawyer tomorrow. Bring everything Gran left you. That night I sat on the hotel balcony, a glass of wine in hand, watching the city hum below. The anger was still there, but it was sharpening into something else, purpose. James and Tara thought my flight to New Orleans was a breakdown. They were wrong. It was the moment I started waking up. Back in Albany they were busy. I pieced it together later from Nate's updates, James's half-hearted confessions, and the grainy footage from our kitchen security camera. After our call, James had paced the leaving room unsettled. Tara sat at the counter, flipping through a tablet full of real estate listings. She's not coming back tonight, Tara said, not looking up. We need to focus. Harrington rescheduled for tomorrow afternoon. That cabin's worth a fortune, lakefront, prime location. James rubbed his temples. Harrington was cagey on the phone. Said Margaret was specific about her wishes. Tara smirked, ever the strategist. That's why tomorrow's key. Old school lawyers love tradition. We show up with a plan, play the devoted family card, and he'll see us as the responsible ones. Their plan was absurd, almost comical if it weren't so infuriating. They decided to bake Gran's blackberry cobbler using the notebook James had Swippetto impress Harrington. A homey touch to mask their greed. Neither of them could cook. James once burned microwave popcorn, and Tara's idea of a meal was takeout. But they figured the recipe was foolproof. The security footage showed the disaster unfolding. James, aproned and clueless, squinted at Gran's handwriting. What's a pinch of salt supposed to mean? Tara, self-appointed overseer, checked her watch. 2 hours till Harrington gets here. It needs to be cooling, the smell's the point. They bumbled through it, flour dusting the counter, butter melting into a greasy puddle. Tara's real agenda slipped out mid-mess. "I've got a buyer lined up through my firm," she said casually. "Cash offer quick close. We could split the commission. James, get you that new truck you've been eyeing." James paused, a rare flicker of doubt crossing his face. "Did Lila ever say why Margaret wanted to keep the cabin? Does it matter?" Tara shrugged. "It's sentimental nonsense. The taxes alone make it a liability. I wasn't there to scream that it did matter, that the cabin was where Gran taught me to swim, where we'd picked blackberries until our fingers stained purple, where she told me stories of our family's roots. To them it was just a paycheck." They moved to the dining room, poring over Tara's inflated property estimates, ignoring the oven's timer. Smoke curled from the vents, unnoticed until James sniffed the air. "Is something burning?" The footage captured their panic. James yanking open the oven, flames leaping from the cobbler's sugary crust, Tara shouting, "Water, get water." He threw a pitcher onto the fire, a rookie mistake that sent flames roaring up the cabinets. Tara grabbed a dish towel, flapping it uselessly as the smoke alarm shrieked. I was in my hotel room sipping lukewarm wine when James called. "Lila, there's been an accident," he said, voice ragged over the wail of sirens. "The kitchenette's bad. Fire trucks are here." "What happened?" I asked, sitting up, dread coiling in my gut. "The cobbler, your grandmother's recipe. We were making it for Harrington and it caught fire. The kitchen's gone, Lila. And..." He hesitated. "The trunk in the dining room, Margaret's old steamer trunk, it's damaged." "The trunk?" Gran's treasure chest from her days as a young immigrant, filled with letters, photos, her mother's lace veil. "Piece of our history." "How bad?" I whispered. "Smoke, water, some burns. The firefighters saved most of it, but the contents." His silence said it all. "How did this happen?" I asked, my calm surprising me. He stammered through the story: the cobbler, the oven, the water. Harrington showed up in the middle of it. Called 911 while Tara tried the extinguisher. He's still here taking notes. "Notes?" I repeated. "About the damage, the heirlooms. Kept asking about insurance, responsible management, stuff like that." "Put him on," I said. "What?" "Lila, there's chaos here. Put him on, James." A moment later, a polished voice came through. "Mrs. Carter, this is Edward Harrington. I presume you're aware of the situation." "I'm in New Orleans," I said. "I just found out. I'm sorry you walked into this." "Perhaps it's fortunate you weren't here," he replied, his tone neutral. "Are you aware your husband and Ms. Sullivan intended to discuss selling the lake cabin today?" My breath hitched. "They told you that?" "Not explicitly. But I found sales projections among the surveying paperwork prepared by Ms. Sullivan's firm." I closed my eyes, the betrayal sinking deeper. "Mr. Harrington, Gran wanted that cabin to stay in the family. Nate and I spent our childhoods there." "I'm aware," he said. "I've represented Margaret for 40 years. Yesterday's events were revealing. I suggest you return soon. We'll expedite the will reading. First flight tomorrow," I promised. "Wise choice," he said. "Margaret trusted you, Mrs. Carter." "I'm beginning to see why." After hanging up, I called Nate. "The kitchen's toast," I told him. "And the trunk's damaged." "Jesus," he muttered. "There's something you need to know. Gran gave me a key to her safe deposit box last summer. The trunk had copies, her journals, the photos. The originals are safe." Relief flooded me, tinged with awe at Gran's foresight. "She never told me." "She didn't want to burden you," Nate said. "She worried about James," said he, reminded her of Uncle Ray, always chasing quick money. Another call came in, James. I ignored it. "What now?" Nate asked. "I'm coming home," I said. "Not for James, but for Gran. They thought I'd stay out of the way. Instead, they've shown me everything." The flight back was different, less frantic, more resolute. A college kid next to me asked if I was VY sighting or Leah VYing. "Returning," I said, watching the clouds shift over the mountains. "To fix what's mine." Nate picked me up at the airport, his hug a lifeline. "Ready?" he asked. "More than ever," I replied. The house reeked of smoke when we arrived, the kitchen a charred skeleton behind plastic sheeting. James rushed out. his face a mask of guilt and relief. "Lila, you're back." I brushed past him, heading for the dining room. Gran's notebook lay on the table, its edges singed, pages warped. I opened it to the cobbler recipe, burnt but readable. At the bottom in Gran's script, "For Lila who knows a legacy is love, not loot. Mr. Harrington's expecting us at 3, Nate said. "Just us." James bristled. "I'm your husband, Lila. This affects me too." "Does it?" I asked, meeting his eyes. "Or just your plans with Tara?" He looked away, and I knew I'd won that round. At Harrington's office, the lawyer laid it out. The cabin was ours, Nate's and mine, with a 10-year no-sale clause. The heirlooms, including the notebook and trunk, were mine alone. Outside marital property. An addendum signed a year ago ensured it all reverted to me if anyone tried to override Gran's wishes. "She saw it coming," Harrington said. "She wanted you secure." Back home I faced James. "You tried to sell what mattered to me," I said. "Lied, stole, burned it down. I'm going to the cabin. I need space." "It was Tara's idea," he pleaded. You agreed," I cut in. "That's enough." The next day, Nate drove me to the cabin. The lake sparkled under the morning sun, the air thick with pine and memory. I held Gran's notebook, damaged but enduring like me. She'd given me more than a place or things. She'd given me the strength to see what I'd been too afraid to face. And from the ashes I'd built something new.